You guys can go ahead and talk for another minute. We can't start till right at 5:30 and we'll wait until we get everybody in here. So go ahead and chat away. We love to hear the chatter. Yeah. All right, well, good evening. We are glad to have you joining us here in the boardroom and those who are joining us virtually as well. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and all right, before we approve the agenda, we would like to welcome Catherine, our student board member, and Superintendent Anderson will kind of give you a little intro here in a little bit, but we're glad to have you with us. Item 1.3 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Item 1.4 is receive a presentation from Adobe Middle School Career Pathways. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. All right, guys, hold on. I think there's a little button right on the mic. Just push it so you see a green light.
Oh, it's green.
Okay,
All right, there we
good.
go.
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Career Technical Education, CTE, provides students of all ages with the academic and technical skills, knowledge, and training necessary to succeed in future careers and to become lifelong learners. According to the Nevada Department of Education in 2021, 92% of Nevada students who participated in CTE programs experienced higher graduation rates than their peers compared to 81% statewide average graduation rate.
To help facilitate CTE's goal, Adobe Middle School implemented a career course called Everyday Heroes.
Our teacher is Ms. D. The purpose of this course is to inspire students in the 8th grade to enroll in additional career technical education, CTE, courses at Elko High School and to provide them with ideas for potential career routes. The goal of this class is to give students some practical experience while also assisting them in exploring various occupation, high school and college course options, and accreditation options. This will be accomplished through study, teamwork, and guest speakers.
We learned about the careers as the EMT, paramedic, nurse, or doctor. We had hands-on experience taking vital signs and had Elko County Ambulance as our guest.
We had a great time pulling hoses, spraying water, and doing fire pack challenges as we learned about the career as a structure in wildland firefighters from City of Elko Fire and Nevada Division of Forestry.
We were lucky to have Officer Morrell and Sheriff Vitor be guest speakers. They taught us about law enforcement. We also got to be detectives to solve a case using fingerprint identification.
Our hands-on experience when learning about careers in dentistry was charting the amount of adult and baby teeth we had. Dr. Dixon from Silver Tree Dental Care was to be our guest speaker, but we had our snow day.
We studied about how careers in animal science can help animals and humans stay healthy. Dr. Morgan from Elko Vet Clinic spoke to us about becoming a vet tech or animal nurse and being a vet. Next semester, we will learn from the Nevada Department of Wildlife.
We also learned about a career in education. We learned it isn't easy, but can be rewarding, getting to know and teach all the students.
Thank you for allowing us to present.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Any emergency extractions on snow day without the help of the dentist? Oh, okay, all right.
All right, thank you again. We're excited to see you guys come and present to us. Come back and join us anytime. And awesome experience to have a great teacher teaching you about other opportunities in CTE. So thank you for being here. We'll move on to item 1.5, which is introduce and meet Andre Ponder, Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy Program Director.
So I'm not going to say too much. I'll let, yeah, you're good. Go ahead, Andre. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit, but this is Andre. I got to know Andre a little bit. He is a former superintendent. He's been an educational leader for decades and a long time.
Yes.
He's a good man, knows a lot about schools. Recently changed his assignment from a superintendent to I don't know the official title, but I'll let him take it from there.
Program director.
We're excited to have him around, so I'll let you take it from here, Andre.
Well, thank you to our fellow board members. Thank you for this opportunity. Also to your superintendent, thank you for inviting me today. As he stated, my name is Andre Ponder, and I'm the former superintendent of Mineral County School District in Hawthorne, Nevada. Prior to that, I am ex-military, I am ex-law enforcement. I've served as a teacher, behavioral specialist, assistant principal. My first principalship was overseas in Dubai. I was there for 2 years as a principal. Came back to the States. I was a principal and a superintendent in the state of Arizona. And then I transitioned into the superintendency in Nevada. I am now the program director of the Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy here in Carlin. This is a partnership with the Elko County School District, and I am just happy to be a part of your community. Today with me, I have one of our recruiters, Miss Melissa Jacobo. She's an asset to the program, and then the school dean, there's Miss Hill. She is also an asset to the program. We started out with 62 candidates, but we're down to 59, and we hope to graduate all 59. And when you see me in the community, I may have a business card in my hand, I may have a flyer, and I think that we all are recruiters. So let's just get the word out that the Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy has a strong leader who is passionate about the program. This Friday, we have what we call our acclamation graduation, and it's where I'm gonna call them cadets. Well, they come in as candidates and then they transfer to cadets. This Friday, we're having a graduation ceremony where they're going to transfer from candidates to cadets. And if any of you are free, we invite you to come and take a look at what it looks like. We're going to have members from the state. We're going to have a helicopter that's going to bring in about 20 people. So if you want to tour the helicopter and even go up the hill and see what our dog tag ceremony looks like, you're welcome to come. It starts at 10 o'clock and we should be done a little bit after noon. Again, thank you for welcoming me and inviting me to your community. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here and we appreciate you do all that you do out there. It's a great program. And yes, we are all recruiters. So we're always sharing information about Battleborn. Thank you. Any questions from the board? All right. Okay, we'll move on to item 1.6, recognition of the January STARS recipients.
All right, is that me? Yes? All right, cool. Let's see, I didn't survey the room. Do we have either of these people here today?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, I will talk about them all the same. For those who may be unfamiliar or, just needed a little refresher, we have our STARS program every month. And thanks to the STARS committee members from all across our county and district for sifting through the nominations that we receive. By way of reminder, anyone who's able to type or have someone type for them or write a nomination is allowed to nominate. A parent can nominate, a student can nominate, a community member can nominate, and we love to receive nominations for our wonderful educators. So there's one certified employee every month that receives this award, and then there's one classified employee every month. And so I'm going to read to you about those two from the month of January. So our classified employee's name is Maria Roman, and Maria is a custodian out at Spring Creek Elementary School. And Maria was nominated by her supervisor, Tina Gardner, who was the building superintendent out there at Spring Creek Elementary. And Tina had the following to say about Maria. Maria is very dedicated to her work. She strives to make sure that our school is well taken care of. She loves the students and the staff. When I was out from back surgery, she stepped up to the plate. She made sure things were taken care of around the school. She put in exhausting hours to make sure things ran smoothly until I was able to come back. Her work ethic and dependability are like no others I have ever seen. Spring Creek Elementary is lucky to have her. So Susan and Kayla and I were able to go out and visit Maria on the job. She was very surprised, very honored. And I've said this a few times in a few different places, but I'll say it from this microphone too. My favorite part about meeting Maria was she just kept repeating the phrase, "I love my job." She absolutely loves what she does. And there are a lot of people in this room who are either currently working in a school or have worked in a school before, and we all know how invaluable a good custodian is in a school and how important that is to keeping an environment that is conducive to learning and helps people feel pride and happiness in where they are. And so we really appreciate Maria and the excellent work she does and congratulate her on being the recipient of the STARS Award for classified employees this month. And then the other nomination that received the award this month from the certified side is Mr. His real name is Thomas, but he goes by Jeff Sarbacker, who is a math teacher at Elko High School. And this was our first recipient nominated by a student to receive the award. So we're really happy to get that nomination. He was nominated by Lucy Salyer, and Lucy said, "I nominate Mr. Sarbacker for the STARS Award because you can see the love he has for teaching every day in the classroom. I took Algebra 2 and Pre-Calculus with him last year. I was only able to pass the classes with A's because his classroom is always open to come in and ask a question. He is very patient and will walk you through every step of the equation. This year, I am taking AP Calculus AB with him. Over the past 2 years, he has jumped on a Google Meet call after hours with my peers and me multiple times to help us understand the unit. He regularly sacrifices his weekends to host open tutoring sessions in his classroom. He provides us with muffins and donuts. He says they are handmade, but you can see the store label on the package." He's a funny guy. Not only is Mr. Sarbacker dedicated to his students, he also cares for each one of us. I have been to Mr. Sarbacker a few times to talk about the school's recent suicides and just rough things with sports and life. I will never leave without laughing at one of his dad jokes. Every day he will make every kid in the classroom smile and slip life advice into the lesson. In addition to math, he offers advice for college and encourages us to never give up. So really appreciate Mr. Sarbacker for being the type of teacher that our students feel comfortable going to and reaching out to for help. We know that our teachers do so much more than just teach in their class. And we appreciate Mr. Sarbacker doing that. So congratulations to him as well. And please just, if you've got a great educator in your life, whether it's someone you work with or your child has as a teacher. We would love to have nominations continue to come in. Give Susan and her committee lots to pour through. Keep them busy with nominations, and we'll look forward to finding out who our recipients are in February.
That is coming up. We have a meeting on Thursday.
Perfect.
And can I just say thank you to Total Eye Care, Anonymous Donor, Keith Frayne with Maverick Gaming, and especially Leanne's Floral and Design, because I called her like the day before and said, could I have flowers tomorrow? And she said, sure. She's been so good, and all of those people have been very good to us. So we appreciate their support along with the STARS committee.
Thank you. And Susan, as always, thank you for your work with that committee. All right, item 1.7 is input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. A speaker's time may not be reserved, divided, apportioned, or deferred. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been included specifically on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken. This is a non-action item. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment at this time? All right, we'll move on to item 2.1, receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed new policy ACB, service animals in schools.
All right, quick intro for me is that, is Mr. Higbee in the room? Oh, there he is. He's hiding. Okay, I'm gonna let Mr. Higbee come up and be the one to answer your questions about this. But this has become something we've had to kind of contemplate and make decisions on lately. And so this is the product of Mr. Higbee's research and working with legal on putting together what we think is the appropriate course of action to follow. So he is here to answer any questions you may have about this policy.
All right, questions from the board?
Dr. Higbee, just to confirm, dogs are the only service animal under ADA as this policy is in here, correct?
Miniature horses is the other one.
Under NRS, correct?
No, under ADA. Miniature horses are allowed.
I didn't realize they had changed that. Okay.
All right, other questions from the board about this policy?
Not sure the size of the horse, but it's got to be pretty miniature.
So miniature horse, I think, is defined under NRS 651.050. Let me confirm that. Sorry, 426097 includes the miniature horse definition. I didn't realize that the federal ADA had been changed to allow miniature horses. I just knew the NRS had, and that's why I wanted to ask that, I knew that service dogs were in there, but I wanted to make sure that we were clear on what we were allowing as a district.
Yeah, when I researched this, there were probably 5 different policies that we pulled this from in different states. And we kind of came to a consensus of what this would look like and how this would fit Elko County School District.
Other questions from the board? All right, what's the will of the board? We don't have any more questions.
Madam Chair, move to approve policy ACB, service animal in schools.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Thank you, Dr. Higbee, for your work on this. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the motion carries. Item 2.2 is receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed changes to policy GBB30, possession of dangerous weapon prohibited. This is for possible action.
Madam Chair, before we hear from the superintendent, go ahead.
Yeah, can I jump in before you two?
Sure.
I don't know exactly what you're going to say, but I do need to say something real quick. We neglected to introduce our visiting board member today.
Yes.
So we should probably do that before we get knee deep and everything. So
Thank you. That was my bad.
Yeah,
I said
no,
he would
no.
introduce you, Catherine. Here it goes.
hello, Catherine. Thanks for being here with us tonight. I'm going to hopefully this doesn't embarrass you too much, but I'm gonna say a lot of nice things about you in front of everybody, okay? So Catherine is a junior at Elko High School. She is currently the president and co-founder of the Elko High School Book Club. She is the co-captain of the Elko High School speech and debate team. She is a varsity member and state qualifier for the Elko High School girls golf team. She is the junior class girls representative of the Elko High School Student Council. She is a member of the Elko High School Key Club. She is a member of the National Honor Society, and she is a member of the International Thespian Society and the Elko High School Drama Club. While doing all of that, she currently has a 4.325 GPA. She plans on attending college in the fall of 2024 at the University of Utah and then the law school at Oxford University in the fall of 2028. She's got things planned out all the way through 2028. Way to go. I hope everyone noticed the composure when I read University of Utah. I'm really happy for her. That's exciting. I'm so glad for you, Catherine. So thank you for being here with us. Really excited to have a student of your caliber at the table with us. And I just want to invite you and encourage you that as we talk about items here, like if you wanted to talk about the miniature horse or dogs or anything like that, you could have chimed in, and we invite you to offer your opinion. You're not here just to be a great person, but we'd value your opinion and hope you'll speak up and give student perspective.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, thanks for being here.
All right, thanks, Mr. Anderson, for keeping us on track with that one. All right, and Catherine, again, welcome. We are glad to have you here and value your opinion. All right, so we are on item 2.2. And Mr. Anderson, did you want to start?
We'll let, I interrupted Matt for that purpose, so I don't know what he
I
was.
appreciate that. I was just going to suggest that because items 2.02, 2.03, and 2.04 are so closely related, perhaps we can discuss them all kind of together, and if need be, make different motions, but they all are similar into what we're looking at. So I figured we could combine them if that is all right with the president and board.
All right, what's the will of the board? Would you like to discuss them all at once and potentially do separate motions, or have a discussion and then have separate motions?
So
How would you guys like to handle it?
which ones are we combining then?
Oh, I wasn't necessarily
discussion
looking at,
points.
combining any policies, just combining the discussion of, and
Okay.
potentially having one motion that would allow all of them, just for the sake of not having to go through it multiple times.
Well, I'm seeking input. What is the will of the board? Do you guys want to do it all at once?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, we don't need to be official about it. Is everyone else good with discussing? Okay, all
That works.
right, yeah, we don't need a motion. We will discuss item 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4, and then potentially vote on them individually or work it into one motion and vote on them together. All right.
Okay, so now my turn.
Yes.
All right, so let's see, I'm pulling all three of them up now since Matt threw off my groove a little bit, but we are good to go. So these are all dangerous weapons policies. One is for students, one is for personnel, one is for visitors. One of these is going to seem very new, and that's because it was first adopted back in April of last year. Another was revised semi-recently, and so these have been topics of discussion, but what we noticed with one coming in, in 2008 and another in 2014 or 16 or whatever it was, and another in 2022, while they reference some of the same legal statutes and acts, the language has changed over time. And so there was inconsistent language between the three. And so since they all reference the same topic and a lot of them similar NRS and acts, a lot of what you're going to see on the red lines are just kind of language shoring up, making sure they're all consistent. And then there were a couple of changes as well that we've just seen from a practitioner's standpoint. So I can answer any question you have about any of these policies.
All right, questions from the board?
All righty, my first question then is going to be in regards to, and perhaps this is something we can change through policy at a later date. In high school, I attended a school in Washoe County where we had a junior ROTC program and I was on the rifle team. Obviously, we needed to transport firearms. Now that was 25-ish years ago. 30 years ago. Somewhere in between there. Anyways, if we were to have a rifle shooting club or a shotgun team or something along those lines, these policies, if we adopt them as written, would prohibit that, correct? And we would need to come back and change this. Am I understanding that correctly?
Just from reading, so it would prohibit people from doing it without permission. Yes,
Okay.
But there are clauses and things in here that allow an exception to be made for certain purposes, for acceptable purposes, and something in that case. I mean, I don't know what you said. What happened 30 years ago? I know as recently as about 5 years ago, JROTC they use wooden rifles now. They use pretend ones. They don't typically use. But if they did, and that was a petition for an exception, and there's the supervision of the commanding officer, I think they would be called. We would evaluate those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So there is latitude to get exceptions to that.
Sorry, not color guard, actual rifle team. We were shooting 22s.
Yeah.
We weren't just using
Yeah,
wooden.
I know out in Wells, they have a cast and blast club, for example. They go do hunting and fishing excursions of such. Yeah. Things have changed, but we do make sure that there is a process for requesting an exception.
Okay. And for the sake of our community, I want to make it clear that expulsion is not something that the district has decided upon. That's something that the state has decided upon under these circumstances. And so I was very pleased to see that the superintendent may, for good cause, allow a modification to that, because we do live in communities in a county that values outdoors and sportsmanship, and so outdoor sportsmanship. So I appreciate that being in there and encourage the wise use. As always, I have no doubts about your wisdom in the application of that.
Oh, well, that's nice of you. Rest assured that whether it is an exception that we're talking about granting or an actual occurrence that we're trying to be judicious about, an appropriate consequence or even the absence of a consequence, none of these decisions are made in a vacuum. We have a principal sitting in the room that within the last couple of months, I've had a conversation with, and she's had a conversation with her administrators, and I've had conversations, one student, one situation, and easily a dozen people talking with each other to make sure we're making the most appropriate decision in these situations. My title is listed on here as the person that kind of has the final say, but those decisions are too important to be left up to one person if we're talking about an expulsion, that sort of thing. So we make sure that lots of wonderful minds come together to make sure we're doing the best thing for us, for that student, and the example you gave.
Any other questions on any of those items, 2.2, 2.3, or 2.4?
I just have a question on GBB 30 for personnel. Under 1B, it says that firearms may not be stored or transported in district-owned vehicles. And at the bottom, it does list what district property is. So that still leaves room for someone to come and try and get that waived by the superintendent in case they're traveling alone or something in a district vehicle and our concealed weapon carry permit.
Yes, just like a student has this, or a visitor has the opportunity to request an exception, staff can do that as well.
Okay.
Yep. And this was a conversation I want to say we had maybe back in November, December, when this when GBB 30 was last, or no, was it GBB 30? Is that the personnel one? Yes. When we discussed that one last time, there are those requests made, and that could extend to a district-owned vehicle.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Right, any other?
I just have a comment about the language of, sorry, I'm getting mixed up of the different ones too. This one's the personnel one.
Yep.
The definition is different than it is in the student one. I don't know if that matters or not. Should we keep it the same, or I think it was the definition of firearm was different.
Yes, ma'am.
Than the student one. I just didn't know if that mattered or not. It might not be that big a deal to even worry about.
So under GBB 30, section 4B2
Mhm.
does not read the same as JDDC section 7C.
See. Mhm.
And I did notice that, but I didn't notice it until honestly just now in going through them.
And while I don't know this is the case for sure, when you compare the NRS and the acts that apply in these situations, they are not the exact same. The NRS that applies to adults as opposed to students varies, and for the personnel, it is the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990, and for students, it is the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1994. So those are different documents that we draw from.
Okay.
That's the best explanation I can give.
That's fine.
Yes, Catherine.
Does the pneumatic gun include like the Orby water guns?
Orby, are those little like
The
things
water
that
pallet?
fill up with water?
Yeah.
I have not had that question specifically. It does extend to like airsoft guns and pellet guns. It would all depend on the mechanics of the device, is the best way I can answer that. I've never used one of those before, so I don't know what the mechanism consists of. And what I will say is, regardless of, me not knowing the answer to that question, again, going back to being judicious and how we carry these out, a school administrator is going to look at that and say, what is the intent here? What is going on? How aware of this is the student of what's going on with this device? That, we would make sure to not just say, hey, that looks like a firearm, so expelled. It doesn't work like that. So I'll have to Google what how that gun works. Yeah, thanks for asking.
All right, any other questions, comments, discussion? If not, what is the will of the board?
Madam Chair, since I think this meeting may already be long enough, I move that we approve the proposed changes to policies GBB 30, possession of dangerous weapons prohibited, JDDC, student discipline, possession of dangerous weapon, and CM, school visitors.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving all three of those at once, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and the motion carries, which moves us to item 2.5, receipt, review, and possible approval of proposed changes to policy IAC, instructional philosophy, limited English proficiency. All right, Mr. Anderson.
All right, so this is related to another agenda item, IAB, which is 2.07. And I'm only saying that because I feel like I need to describe some context here. I want to say the meeting in December that we had, so roughly 6 weeks ago, I brought IAB proposed for deletion. And at that time, that was tabled until a future meeting and didn't quite have it all ready to go for last meeting. So here it is again. And IAC is relevant to this because what I said at that time when the board asked to push that off to a later meeting, I don't remember my exact wording, but I ended up deciding to go ahead and give what I think would be an appropriate revision to IAC to capture the elements of IAB that I think are of worth and important to our students, and implement those into IAC, revise IAC to match current practice, because IAC had a lot of stuff from 2015 and things that weren't really happening anymore in our schools, not just our schools, but like the English learner program has changed since then. So did some updating there and pulled elements of IAB to put it into IAC. And so that product now, IAC is, that's what that consists of. It consists of pieces of IAB and updates.
All right,
And
questions
I
from
am
the board?
here to answer questions about either, well, I guess we're on IAC, so to answer questions about IAC.
I feel like
Go
if I
ahead,
don't
Matt.
jump in, nobody does anything.
Oh.
Wow.
Sorry. And one thing, is Lelsey. Oh, there she is in the back. Hi, Lelsey. So Lelsey in the back, to the right of the clock, she is our EL coordinator. Is that the correct title? Yes. She is our English learner coordinator for the district. She works here in the district offices, but goes around to all the schools and supports all the district EL teachers and EL aides. And so if you have any questions relating like to direct practices on how our EL program works, she is probably going to give the best answers. I can give my input too, but she's here she came here just for this item to help you out. So.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll defer back to the board. Any questions, comments?
So I'm going to jump in with some comments. First, I appreciate the work that has gone into this, very much so. And I wholeheartedly embrace multilingualism, not just bilingualism. If I were king of the world and could snap my fingers, I think it'd be required to have bilingualism as a graduation requirement, because I believe that multiple languages enhance learning. They help change the brain. And I started learning that when my eldest was a child, and we would teach him sign language. At 6 months old, he was able to communicate with us, where most 6-year-olds are, a new parent, an 18-year-old father's looking at his kid saying, "Why are you crying?" And he'd be able to tell me, for the most part, why he was crying. So I find that extremely important. So I appreciate the work that went into this. I also appreciate the attempts to fold IAB into this, particularly item 7 under the guiding principles, in which the district will focus on the teaching and utilization of English, while at the same time encouraging English learners to retain their native languages, which are an asset to both them and society. I know that this had come up previously because of Owyhee High School, and I felt that IAB could have still allowed Owyhee High School to produce the desired effects that they were looking for, though I know that this will certainly now, with policy IAC, certainly enhance that a little bit better. I do have some continued questions on IAC, and when we get to IAB, I will bring some additional concerns up there. And one of the things that I had asked previous to this meeting was in regards to the implementation guidelines per NRS 388.407. And I regret, Mr. Anderson, that you and I did not have time to visit further, because this was part of what I wanted to visit on as well. I had asked, sorry, backing up a little bit for the sake of the audience, implementation guideline 1A says upon enrollment and at the beginning of every school thereafter, a home language survey must be completed by the parent or guardian indicating whether any language other than English is spoken in the home. I recognize that this is a Nevada revised statute. This is state law that requires this. Every student is supposed to be doing this, or at least the parent or guardian of every student is supposed to be doing this. And so I'd ask the question, what happens if it doesn't get done? And part of my frustrations that I have seen over the past year is I believe there is a failure to hold parents accountable in many areas. I think many of the stresses that our teachers and educational staff, as well as our district staff, go through is because parents are not accountable. And I'd like to see that we start doing what we can to hold parents accountable. And so since we have no teeth, because this is not our law, this is the state legislature's law, I'd like to know what would happen if we said any parent that doesn't complete this, regardless of what language is spoken at home. In our home, the only language we speak is Spanish or is English. And if we don't turn this in, well, our name should go back to the Department of Education, since it's the Department of Education that is requesting that we do this. What the Department of Education does with it, I don't know or care, but at least we're saying, parents, this is important. We are required to do this. And this will do nothing but help the district to understand what it is that our students need. So that's kind of the first question. And I don't know that I'm prepared to make this as a motion yet, but hypothetically, and I'm hoping someone in here could answer that. What happens if we say, you didn't answer this, so we're going to let somebody else know about it? Please come on up. Sorry, that was a little assertive of me.
While she's coming up, could you mention the piece of 388.407 that you were referencing?
Sure, let me look that up while she's hopefully getting that answer.
Yeah, so my name is Lelsey Stewart, and I'm the ESL coordinator for the school district. And so in the registration, we have the home language survey. So every new student that comes into the district will have to fill out that home language survey. But also there's a part on it, they have to acknowledge that they have answered that home language survey. So they have to answer yes or no on it. So that I feel like addresses your concern.
And so we get 100% of those surveys back.
Yes, it's part of the registration. So it's in the registration for our school district.
Okay. And so every student at the beginning of every year sends that packet home. I've never not sent that. I mean, the kids get it. My wife and I usually kind of tag team, and I don't know that we've ever not sent it in. But what happens if that's not sent in? No,
it's part of the registration when you register your student.
It's only new students, right?
Yes, new
new
students.
student. It's not
One time.
every existing.
It's one
Right.
time.
Okay, because the policy says that every year thereafter. So
Oh,
that's
because we evaluate them every year.
But
And then we send home as from the program, we send home a letter saying this is the score your student got. He still needs to qualify, or he still qualifies for services, and they have to answer on that letter yes or no if they want services, because they can opt out. By the way, that's part of the law by the state that says the parent has the right to opt out.
okay. And so what I'm reading this as, the policy states, upon enrollment in the district and at the beginning of each school year thereafter, a home language survey must be completed by the parent and or guardian, indicating whether any language other than English is spoken in the home. That implies that it goes to every student.
Every
Are
student
we-
that comes to the district that registers in the district will, but maybe that language needs to be revised where it says every year thereafter, because it's only done during their registration. And then every year we reclassify them in our program. We reclassify them and we send that home, and the parent does have to okay that they can still stay in the program.
And so I think that's part of where my concern is coming from. I'm saying before it even, so when you say program, you're saying English language program or
Yes.
English learner program.
Yes.
I'm saying before it even gets there. So I've had 3 kids registered. I don't know if I've ever filled this out, but it seems like I should have had to fill this out. And then I'm supposed to be doing it every year. That's what I was looking at, because I have no doubts that there were times where I don't think my youngest son can speak English very well. So And so I'm looking at if this has nothing to do with how many languages you're speaking at home. This had to do with, I thought every single parent had to do this. We're going to be talking here in a minute on 4-day school weeks. We had 25%, 27% parent response. I figured we were having similar numbers here, which was irritating because it's like, well, that means 3 and 4 aren't even telling us what we need to be teaching their students. So I'm not looking at this as an English learner program issue. I was looking at this as a district issue. And so
Now,
that's
every
maybe,
student that registers in our district fills out that home language survey. Every student. So your children probably filled it out.
I
but then
could be
we,
wrong, but I swear at the beginning of every year, there's a packet sent home with every one of my kids. And on that packet that I have to fill out, it does ask what's the primary language spoken at home.
and that's what
I
I was,
swear it
that's
is.
what I was thinking as well, that it was somewhere in there. But what happens if it doesn't get sent in? I don't know that we've ever not sent it in
Yeah.
because we try to be responsible
And
parents.
the only thing I know, it's because I get a notification from Infinite Campus that says we have a student that, but yes, we speak a language other than English. So then I contact that school and my EL teacher, and then they have to classify the student as EL or not EL.
At the beginning of every year, we do, she's right, it's not like the full, so when you first enroll, you do get, and I don't mind being interrupted by a principal in the room who maybe might know better, because you've done this more recently, but the way I remember it is when you first register, you like fill out a full-on, whatever it's called, home language survey, thank you. And then just like you fill out a lot of things, you fill out tons of information there, right? And then at the beginning of every year, a document goes home that basically says, please indicate if there are any changes to any of your information. And if we don't get anything back from you, we're assuming everything is the same. And sometimes people send those back and say it's all the same, or they don't. And if there is something that changes, then they send that back. But in all my experience, no one's primary language has ever changed from English to not English. It's usually the other way around. You come in and you speak whatever you speak at home. And so
Well, to
that's not something that
clarify,
changes a lot.
yeah, to clarify also, once they're enrolled in our program, the only way they can get out of our program is by passing or being proficient on that assessment that the state gives, which is called the access.
Or a parent's opting them out.
Yeah.
And they would opt out automatically if they didn't reply.
Now, the state law says that a parent can opt them out from services, but a parent cannot opt them out from testing. However, there are exceptions that we have done because there's reasonable reasons, I guess, if you will, where we have said, okay, for instance, if we have a nonverbal student, what do we do, right? They were classified as EL because they spoke Spanish or whatever language at home, but they're nonverbal. So why do we continue to test them when they're nonverbal, right? So that's a reasonable exit from the program.
Okay.
The state doesn't like it, but what are we going to do? So anyway, but that's one way that they can exit the program.
Okay. So then, thank you, because I appreciate that clarification. I thought this was every parent in the county had to do this. Every parent of an Elko County School District student had to do this. And so that's what I was looking at. Well, let's do something other than just sitting on it. But I didn't realize it was intended. And obviously this is the stupid comment since this is the EL or the policy that deals with
English learners.
English learners. Thank you. Instructional philosophy for English learners. I just really had thought it was all students. So thank you for clarifying that.
And so something I can just add for you too, Matt, to kind of, I don't know, put your mind at ease a little bit about this is once a student is identified initially from this, as she mentioned, that student remains in the program, but having just seen it myself, your EL teacher goes well beyond the call of duty to be in contact with those families of those students. So whatever their caseload is, that teacher is spending a lot of time communicating, helping parents understand where those kids are, helping them understand the value of being in EL. Like there's a lot of communication that goes there. It's not like all right, you took the survey, we're putting this on their schedule and we're going to hope that works out, right? Like there's way more that goes on there. There's engagement events with those parents. There's just a lot that happens. And some of that's detailed in here. But like so many other things we've seen, there's way more going on than what you would actually think just from a policy. Like there's so much engagement happening there. And so, yeah, they continue to get that support. And even if an EL teacher is overburdened, which most of them do have a heavy caseload, no one's looking to lighten that load and hoping for an opt-out. They're encouraging kids to stay in until they exit appropriately. And that's the service we're providing there.
Okay.
Well,
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to
Sorry.
interrupt you and say that the chair will entertain a motion with a reminder that we can still discuss after the motion has been made. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion for approval of this policy?
I move to approve the policy as written.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Now, are there any other items of discussion on this policy?
So Brooke had mentioned that the document that comes home, the survey says, I believe something along the lines of primary language. This document or this policy indicates any language other than English. So if my wife had been from France and she spoke French because she wants our children to learn French, the way this policy is written, it appears that we would need to fill out that home language survey, which would then go to Elsie and her team, who would then contact us, and we could say, no, we're waiving that requirement. So perhaps we should change the policy to say primarily other than English, or something along the lines that say, would you like to have the services of English learning? Because Elsie and her team have got enough than having to babysit, the folks that may speak multiple languages at home, but don't need those services. Does that make sense? And I know it's nitty gritty. I'm trying to.
Yeah, let me just jump in there. I think that I think that is an edit. Should whatever, I don't know, I'm suggesting an amendment that includes because I think the part, Wellesley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that should read whether any language other than English is primarily spoken in the home. The word primary is present in NRS, and that is what determines whether a student gets tested in the first place. It's not if any language other than English is spoken in the home, because I'm a fluent Spanish speaker and I speak it in the home sometimes just for fun. But my kids primarily hear English in the home, therefore they would not be tested under this policy.
Perfect.
So we probably do need to put the word primarily in there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I just want consistency there, and I want to
Thank you for
waste resources.
thank you for noticing that.
Okay, then, Madam Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
Go ahead.
Under implementation guidelines, number 4, it currently reads, upon request, the parents or legal guardians of English learners, A, have the opportunity to participate in this program, B, will be provided with translations of important documents, and C, will be provided interpreters for conferences and other meetings. I'd like to go a step further and and specifically state that it's our policy that we're encouraging them to participate. Therefore, I'd like to amend that to say, the parents or legal guardians of English learners are encouraged to participate in this program, and upon request and in accordance with NRS 388.406, will be provided with translations of important documents and interpreters for conferences and other meetings.
All right, do we have a second for that amendment? All right, if not, the amendment just dies right there. So we will go back. We have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on the motion on the floor?
Do we need to amend it at all in order to include primary? I'm new to this.
You can make a motion to add primary in the location that
Go
you'd
for
like it
Matt.
added.
Teach me how it's done.
Then I would like to propose another amendment, that being
It's implementation
That
guidelines 1A.
under implementation guidelines 1A, the word primarily be added in so that the new language would read, upon enrollment in the district and at the beginning of each school year thereafter, a home language survey must be completed by the parent or guardian indicating whether any language other than English is primarily spoken in the home.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of adding the word primarily into implementation guideline 1A at the end where Matt added it, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and we will add that word. All right. We still have a motion on the floor that the amendment has been approved, which means we can still vote on the motion as amended. Is there any other discussion? All right, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that motion as amended carries. That moves us to item 2.6. So, Mr. Anderson?
Yep, that's a long one. So there are 5 policies that I am recommending for deletion. These, if you were, I'm sure you have done this, if you were to open them, you will notice that most of them are so old that they either don't have a date or that date goes back into the 1990s of when these were created. Because that is the case, in some instances, they reference NRS that no longer exists or has changed. Furthermore, with the approval of JDDC this evening, many of those things have been strategically looped into that policy because that makes the most sense for them to just be all in one place. And there are a few things such as regarding student discipline, things that apply to restorative behavior that are found elsewhere in other official district documents, such as our restorative behavior plan or our discipline matrix. So that information is found elsewhere. And it seemed like a good idea just to, I don't know, be more efficient and not have all these mini policies that all are already taken care of elsewhere. So if you have a question about any individual one, then I'm happy to answer. Yeah.
I will start by saying I appreciate going through and getting rid of things that are no longer useful, effective, or in any way apply to our district. I kind of think we should have a legislative session where that's all they do. Just go in and get rid of stuff that no longer applies. So I appreciate being able to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a recommendation that we delete those, but I will open up the floor for discussion.
I agree with you. I'm glad to clean it up, and especially when you have things talking about discipline and weapons from 1997, a lot has changed. So I'm glad to take care of that.
All right, any other discussion, or would we like a motion?
Madam Chair, move to delete policies JDD, JDDD, JDDE, JDDF, and JDDG.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of deleting said policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and congratulations, we have just deleted some policies. Item 2.7 is review and possible deletion of policy IAB, instructional philosophy, English language resolution and policy. Mr. Anderson, we've already kind of talked about this one.
Yeah,
Do you have anything to
I think I
add?
gave it a preview. No, other than I will reiterate, I think the most important parts are now officially in policy. They're in IAC, which you just approved. And I think the rest of it can and should go. I'm here to answer any questions you have, but I am still recommending deletion of IAB.
All right, any questions from the board? What's the will of the board?
Move to delete policy IAB.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to discuss something if I could. I have a tendency to think as I talk. I have a tendency to say things that my wife will be the first to tell you is me swallowing my own foot. And while I say that, I think most people who know me know where my intentions lie. And it dismays me that someone might hear what I'm saying and judge me one way without trying to hear my intent. As I mentioned earlier, I wholeheartedly embrace multilingualism. I embrace multiculturalism. I think this board can recognize the shared culture that has made this country what it is, while also celebrating the many cultures that make up these United States. That does not make me anything other than someone who embraces the culture of the place that I live historically. Today, I was told by a wise person that culture is constantly changing. Every introduction changes culture. That is absolutely right. That doesn't mean that we can't also choose things that are important to the culture at large and embrace that part of our culture that we don't want to see changed. I think I'll step down at that point. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? Yes, let Brooke talk and then yeah, I'll accept a public comment.
So my comment is just that I do think this policy is outdated. It closes the door completely on ever possibly being able to do dual immersion classes. And so I do think it is outdated and needs to be deleted. I think also when you guys discussed this in December and Matt talked about it, after that I really went and did some research, and I think we have state standards that aren't going anywhere on English and how kids need to be proficient in English. And so there's going to be obviously a level of instruction in English that has to be met. And so in that sense, I guess I'm not worried about it.
All right, thanks, Brooke. All right, Mr. Hoffman, I'd welcome a public comment on this.
I'm just going to remind Catherine that you're welcome to speak up on any of these.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. I really wasn't planning on commenting tonight. I'll make sure I sign in when I leave. But I also didn't want you to think that I had forgotten you all since I've been going to city council meetings recently. I think that there is one important piece of the policy you're deleting that isn't captured in the new policy. And it really comes down to, as Mr. McCarty was just saying, the culture of our country. And I embrace our diversity and our multiculturalism. But the statement is left out that English is the official language of the school district. And I think that is still an important concept. I don't want to keep anybody from speaking any language they want to, but it does seem to me that English is and should be established as the official language of the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments from the board before we move to a vote?
I just want to support Matt. Matt, I appreciate all your comments you make. While I sit here in silence, I was told that it's better to sit in silence than when you have nothing to add to the conversation. So,
or you don't want to put your foot in your mouth. I'll maybe learn one of these days to just sit in silence.
but I do want to say this, that if getting to know you even more on this board and the communication we have, if anyone has any issues with, or if they have any issues thinking where your heart is at and what you're saying, I think they need to reassess their brain, because I know that your heart, whether your foot's in your mouth, your heart's in the right place. So, and so I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
I'll reiterate that too. And if I could add one more thing to what Brooke said, that is that we, as was like, you got a little glimpse of how much effort we put into making sure that our students who come from a home where English is not the primary language, how much work goes into helping them become proficient. And we have, and I don't know if I'm not going to put Lelsey on the spot, but the success rate of that is very high. Kids exit out of that EL program. There's a lot of great work that's done there. We will continue to do that great work. We will focus wholeheartedly on making sure that they are given every opportunity, and we're doing our best to help them however they come to us. We just got someone last week who's a 10th grader who doesn't speak a lick of English, and we're going to do our very, very best during the up to 2 years we have that student, right? Like, or 3 years, I guess, 2.5, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to do everything we can. And what we don't need is something that is commanding someone on when they can and cannot speak their native language in order to accomplish the greater goal we're looking to do. We are already actively and wholeheartedly focused on that. And I just want to reassure you that we will do that without this policy in place.
And I appreciate that. We have an employee of mine that is a graduate of Elko County School District. He entered into school speaking no English, from my understanding, and came out that, now there's, you probably would not know that about his history. And so I have 100% confidence in our program. And when it comes to a vote, my nay vote is not intended to mean that I don't support the EL program. It's far from far from that as far as a non-support. It's a symbolic stand to say that I don't think that we need to abandon one culture in favor of multiple cultures, I guess. And I don't know how to say that without sticking my foot in my mouth. So I'm just going to kind of leave it at that.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Catherine.
Do foreign exchange students go into the ELL program if they don't test proficient enough in English?
That's
I say they have
they do not.
They have to be able to speak English to come.
Okay.
Yep.
That's part of the requirement for them.
Okay. Good question.
Great question, Catherine. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
All right, any other thoughts before we vote? Okay, all in favor of deleting policy IAB, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Chair votes aye, and we will delete policy IAB. Thank you for the discussion. We will move to item 2.8, discussion of and possible approval of changes thereto, the date and/or time for meetings of the Board of Trustees.
Madam Chair, I'm
Right.
going to jump in there. I had to ask that this be put on the agenda, and I appreciate that. As was mentioned with Mr. Hoffman earlier, we do on this board have a conflict with Elko City Council in that they meet typically on the same nights that we are meeting. And while this is obviously a county-wide board, whereas theirs is a municipality, they're still the largest municipality in the county. And I think that it does a little bit of a disservice to our constituents when we make them choose to attend either of these meetings instead of being able to attend both. I also realize that, and I haven't looked into this, but perhaps now that I'm on the board, the meetings have gone a little longer than normal, but we may also, while we're talking, perhaps consider moving it up in the timeline. I want to be respectful of our teachers and staff. Obviously, we can't move it too far in advance up because I don't think that moving it into school hours is going to be respectful of their time and their wishes. But that may be something that we can also consider. But at the very least, I would like to see us move our meetings to a different day, suggesting but not making a motion of perhaps the first and third Tuesdays of every month.
All right, discussion from the board.
I'm all for the move in dates. Time still discuss.
I
Just
think,
look-
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Brooke.
I think we should possibly move it to Wednesday. I just think when you look at school activities and stuff, it seems like they're most of the time scheduled on Fridays, Saturdays, and Tuesdays. And I hate when there's people that would like to be at different sporting events and things like that that are missing out on those opportunities because there are games oftentimes during our meetings.
Paul,
You've done a couple of athletic schedules before. Oh, there's two Pauls. They both looked at me. I just realized they're both nodding their heads. You've both done athletic. Well,
Yeah, Tuesday's
If
terrible.
we're gonna schedule, like, everything in the 3A usually sets up Friday and Saturday. But if you need another day, it goes to Tuesday, and then third choice is Wednesdays after that. Rarely do we have games on Wednesday. But almost every Tuesday this winter, we've had something going on, mostly because of lack of officials.
so it would
And
be
it-
accurate to say that other than Fridays and Saturdays, Tuesday is the next most common day that we have athletic events.
And occasionally, yeah, and occasionally Thursdays, right? Sometimes they do a Thursday game, like a trip to Fallon.
And I would add that Thursdays are Fridays for the 4-day schools. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a problem there too.
And actually Wednesdays might fit because looking at the calendar for first and third Tuesday, there's some holidays that come in on those this coming year. So I'm fine with whatever you guys are fine with.
I have clinic hours until 6, so that's a complete rearrangement. But that'll be super tough. That's about 100 appointments I'm rescheduling. So
On a Wednesday.
on a Wednesday. So, I mean, will of the board, but at the same time, I want to make sure that's on the table. So as it stands right now, I have Tuesday and we rearranged Tuesday so that I could be here on Tuesdays. And that's been in place since appointment. So just throwing that out there. But again, will of the board. I know what I signed up for.
Would it be really hard to rearrange again till Wednesday or no?
Like how much time?
Like how much,
Like
yeah.
if we did it
however would that
months
be
from
for you?
now, or
Um,
I'm just curious,
well,
or just.
ultimately,
it
it's my clinic, but I don't want to like upset everybody that comes in, right? So
Because they're used to you now having Tuesdays off, right?
Tuesday, removing Tuesday was removing an afternoon. So it was like 30 to 40 appointments. So removing a Wednesday is, like I said, closer to that 100 plus appointments. So, yeah, I mean, it can be done. I mean, I could do it tomorrow, but it's a matter of how many people will that affect overall. So.
One other potential piece of information as we look at dates, Elko County Commission meets on Wednesdays and Thursdays. They're the first and third Wednesdays. They meet at 1:30. They have had meetings that go late into the evening, but that may also be something that can take some coordination with their board chair to be able to take certain items and move them around on the schedule to still allow for a non-conflict when there are major issues if need be, and or if the audience requests that. So
Then would a second and fourth Wednesday not conflict with their stuff then?
second and fourth Wednesday wouldn't conflict with Board of Commissioners or that I'm aware of other meetings. However, that doesn't help Dr. Byers. And let me check to see, does anybody in the audience know when Carlin, Wells, West Wendover, Jackpot, it said, well, Jackpot's an improvement district. So Wells, Wendover, Carlin, when they may meet. Okay, I'll do some searching while we're meeting or talking real quick.
All right, any other input from the board?
What if we move it to the first and third Tuesday, and then that gives Dr. Byers a chance to poll your clients because, I mean, there must be maybe there's a reason why they like Wednesday, I don't want to interfere with someone's business.
Well, usually because it's a rhythm base, right? So chiropractic works through a rhythm, time and repetition. So we have Monday, and then usually we can see them on Wednesday or Thursday. And then Friday is kind of a cleanup day. It's a power hour, if you will. So that's why Monday, Wednesdays worked historically has worked really well. But and that was another reason why I was like, oh yeah, I can go and try out for the board. And was because we had it on Tuesday. And that was a half day when we initially started, and it was okay. We cleared out the afternoon for that. So
What if we try the first and third Tuesdays and move the time?
That's what I was gonna say, is if we
Four.
were to move the time on the Tuesdays, that might conflict with, well, less varsity level athletics, but we might still run into other level athletic issues.
But we can't work everything around.
No.
I mean, it's a meeting for
The,
this meeting.
right.
Well,
Is there a day that works best for staff that comes to all of these meetings also? I know we're thinking about what works up here for various reasons, but.
No,
I don't know.
I don't want to, I can't speak for everybody, but central office staff know it's part of the gig. Like you're at board meetings when there's board meetings, and I know we have other staff that are here attending as well. And I think if it's important for them to be here, they'll be here. And Tuesdays tend to be, Tuesdays, Wednesdays are, I don't know, I think just they would be a wash for someone from a employee standpoint. Now, if they have a child who's involved in X athletic or whatever, that changes the equation. But while you're still discussing something, and I apologize, Madam Chair, for not noticing this before today, but it was just brought to my attention that there actually is an active policy about when we have meetings. So we have an item to discuss and have possible action of something, but we don't have action to change a policy exactly on this, nor do I have a revised item to give you. So whatever you do talk about and decide tonight, it would need to be brought back again anyway as a change to policy. So that is BD/BDA. It is dictated in there that it's the second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 5:30, very specifically. So.
All right, thank you. With kind of lots of, I would say, still things to still discuss up here, I was going to suggest that perhaps we hold off on this and we look at the policy. We look at availability. We look at dates and times a little bit closer, and perhaps submit possible dates and times of meetings to Cassie. She could kind of look at those and see if there's somewhat of, a pattern as far as what would work well, and potentially look at discussing this at a future meeting in regard to policy and potential change. How does the board feel about that?
Madam Chair, if I may, before we make any decision on that, Cassie, if you don't mind, would you record that Carlin City Council currently meets on the second and fourth Wednesdays? Wells City Council meets on the second and fourth Tuesdays, and West Wendover meets on the first and third Tuesdays. I did not record times, however, and I neglected to do that. I apologize, but just to have that in there. And Madam Chair, I move that we postpone discussion on this meeting, on this topic until a future meeting, hopefully the next meeting. And when we reconvene, that we modify the agenda item to allow for discussion and possible change of policy BD/BDA.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and we will readdress this at a later time. We'll move on to item 2.9, receipt and review of information related to the implementation of a 4-day school week for all Elko and Spring Creek schools beginning in the 2023-2024 school year, and the possible approval of any actions related thereto.
I have another appointment I need to get to, so I'm gonna, no, I'm just kidding.
You may not leave.
I actually am really excited that I am a policy wonk. I like going through policy and, but I'm also really excited because I like to be a solution-oriented thinker. And I see this as a terrific opportunity for this district, for this board to solve a major issue within our district and potentially change the outcome of this district for years to come. That's not indicative of which way I'm going because I still am waiting for that clear, crystal, amazing decision that is going to pop into my head and say, yes, I have 100% conviction on this. It's not there yet. So I'm loving, I would love to hear the discussion, but I just want to say I'm excited that this opportunity has come up. And I strongly urge that we make a decision this evening so that we can move the district forward, because I think the district has been in limbo for 7 months now, roughly. And being able to decide which way we're going, I think is important. So I just wanted to start off with that.
Thank you. All right, open it up for discussion. Mr. Anderson, do you want to start? You'd just
Yeah,
like the
so
board.
I'll just, not a whole lot to say. This has been, we've talked about this at a lot of meetings, at least a handful of board meetings. We received excellent presentations from staff members, from parents. You've heard a ton of public comment. Back in, I want to say November, I shared with you and actually made available to the public the results of those surveys, the individual comments, obviously not attached to people's names, but individual comments from people, from students, from caregivers, from staff members, why they would vote yes to this, why they would vote no, why they were undecided. So you, depending on how much of that information you've looked over, you have, I'm sure, seen quite the variety of opinions and impacts that a decision like this has on families and on students and on educators. And I've put studies in that folder. There's a lot of info in that folder. And so, yeah, I do echo Matt's sentiment that I think a decision one way or another does need to be made. I will remind the board that were the decision to be in favor of making such a change, the next appropriate step is to, because this would constitute, if anything ever constituted a second order change, this is it. And so under our district operations, a second order change should go to the Superintendent's Advisory Committee. And then that would convene and provide a recommendation to the board. And we would do that as quickly as possible if you were to head in that direction.
If we went to the advisory committee, that doesn't mean we're in favor of it necessarily.
Nope, not necessarily.
It needs to be studied.
Well, I mean, yes, not necessarily. By going to the I'm gonna change my answer to match what I think your question is asking. By going to the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, that does not commit you. That doesn't mean the Superintendent's Advisory Committee is going to give you the formula for how to do 4-day. They would give you a recommendation on whether or not they think the school district should go to 4-day. That would be what the Superintendent's Advisory Committee would do. And just for a reminder for everyone, or maybe this is the first time you've heard this, the Superintendent's Advisory Committee consists of me. It consists of 2 central office. Well, we can alter this too if we want, but it typically would consist of 2 central office staff members, like director positions. It would consist of leadership from ECTA. It would consist of leadership from the Site Administrators Association, and it would consist of course, I can't remember the last one.
I know it's
board members. Yeah, you guys. Yeah, you're in there too. Yeah, so those are the 5 entities. We did discuss at one point that I didn't super love that EXO is left out of this, but I don't know if there's a reason for that. But it's noticeably not there. So if we wanted to add other entities, we could do that. But then that would make 6, meaning we would then need a 7th to have a deciding vote type thing. So we could expand that, or we could just stick to those 5. But it is essentially all of the, we're supposed to represent the school district.
Sorry, is EXO on there?
EXO is the model that was given. So I provided the superintendent's advisory committee from whatever that was. It was many years ago. And it did not include EXO. Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about that because I like EXO.
We all do. We're grateful for that.
They're roughly half of our employee base. So feel like this decision affects them.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
So to confirm, or to clarify, sorry, if we vote today to go to 4-day, it goes to advisory council, who then makes their recommendation.
No. I'll stop you there. I'm telling you that if you are in favor, like, let's say the board is in favor of pushing forward in pursuit of 4-day, the next appropriate step is to go, because it is a second order change, to go to the superintendent's advisory council. I think, hopefully I'm not stepping over some bounds because I work for you, but I think it would be inappropriate to just jump over that step and say, we are in favor, we are going to a 4-day, make it happen. That would not be appropriate. And I think you'd have a lot of, well, there would be plenty of happy people. I think you would have people that would not respect that decision because it is not following a second order change process. So yeah, I think, again, you can vote however you want to vote because you're the board.
No,
but you're either voting, I think, to say we're done talking about this and we're not doing it, or we'd like to take the next step forward, which is to go to the superintendent's advisory council to get a recommendation.
Thank you. That was the clarification I was looking for.
Can I just put in my 2 cents?
Yeah.
As you guys know, I try to do as much research as I can. I printed out all the comments from those surveys and highlighted all kinds of things. So I read through all of those. A lot of people are asking, yeah, we want it, but is it going to extend the day? Is it going to do this? Is it going to do that? And I'll try to shorten all my comments because I have a ton. I've read articles. I went back and looked at public comments that were emailed to us. Then I went back and looked at notes that I made earlier. I went back and looked through board docs and found where, like for Wells, when it was supposed to come back, and found that information when Jackpot was approved, when Wendover was approved, went through all of that. And I know some people, they really want a yes or no tonight, but for me, I am not ready for that. And I know people have said, all the information's been out there, but my number one question in my head is, how does this benefit students and their academic life? And I hear people, it's sports. I saw a lot of sports comments, and I really am trying to understand that side of it too, along with the sub issue. But I start with, how is this going to benefit students, and will it benefit students? And I'm not saying it won't. A lot of what I've read, it starts out okay, but several years, because now we do have some more data, several years down the road, it isn't working like they thought it was. And I've looked at test scores, what you can, even in some in our own state, test scores aren't really going any different, or they're not any better. Sometimes they're worse. So I would like to look into those things a little more. I felt like at my house, I need to have like those big sticky things like all over my house, because every time I'd find something, oh my God, and then I try to figure it out and write it down. So I really would like to bounce things off of a committee, work together as a committee to decide all of those, because I have lots of positives, but I have lots of negatives, I guess, if you will. They're more questions like, how do we solve this? And I think we could have an opportunity here to turn things around as far as maybe mentoring, like even using Friday for something different instead of a 4-day week. I mean, I think there's some other possibilities. And I would rather see us look into that first than to just tonight say, yeah, let's just do a 4-day without. We are different than the Wells community, the Jackpot community. It's a different, it's, for me, it's different than those outlying areas. So that's just my 2 cents. I would rather see us go to the advisory committee first.
If I can add one more little bit of the word wisdom has been thrown around today. There's someone I know whose opinion I value very highly, who's been intricately involved in 4-day processes and has been involved in changing from schools from a 5-day to a 4-day. And that person told me if it's done for any reason other than a superior academic model, not only are you probably doing it for the wrong reasons, but you are, I think it's probably set up to fail. That change should be for a better academic model and not for other reasons. So that, and I think that kind of speaks to what some of what Susan was just saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions I have of just finding data. And like I said, I appreciate everyone participating in the survey and all of that. I really do, because it's good to get a feel for what they want. But I kind of looked at it. I was kind of thinking about it the other night of when people voted down the pay-as-you-go and then they voted down the bond issue. I'm not sure everybody had a true picture of what that could look like further down the road. And so with this decision, I want to make sure, at least the decision that we're going to make, I want to make sure that it's a decision we can be happy with down the road, not just, excuse me, not just quickly. And I know 7 months doesn't seem quickly, but it's a big decision. It's a big change for this community. And I'd rather do some more research and find out some more data. So that's my more than 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Anyone else?
I would like to just, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone that would be on the advisory committee, but I kind of feel like we have polled the people that I think maybe the opinions matter most: students, parents, teachers, the ones who are in the trenches with these kids, teaching them what they need to know every day. I think kind of overwhelmingly people are in favor of it or undecided. And so I think the majority of, or the people that would be upset if we switched over is the minority compared to the majority. I think would be either the undecided or the ones that are in favor of it. They'd be okay with it. Where you say that if we're doing it for any other reason other than better academic model, to like provide a better academic model, is what you said. I think I have kids right now that are being taught by teachers that aren't even certified teachers. If this can make our district more appealing so that we can hire teachers because we have such a teacher shortage, I think that that's going to provide a better academic model for our children. If they're being taught by teachers who are trained and certified and are going into work every day, putting in 100% and really kind of investing their time and energy into their students. I've talked to a lot of teachers that I trust, that I know have the best interest for their students, want their students to grow and to succeed. And every one of them is in favor of this 4-day school week model. I've also talked to teachers who are in the 4-day week right now and love it. And they've definitely had to kind of change the way that they do things in the class in order to make sure that they're getting all the instruction in that they need so that their kids' test scores aren't dropping and so that they're learning the way that they should. But they said that they've figured out ways to do that and that it is possible, and that you kind of have to cut some of the fluff that you normally would do during the year that's fun for the kids and stuff like that. But overwhelmingly, everybody I've talked to, families, teachers, and everybody that I've talked to that is doing the 4-day model is happy. So I feel like while Susan says that she'd like to have more data and stuff like that, I feel like we need to make a decision on it tonight. The other thing I was going to say is, as a board, if we're in favor of going to the 4-day week, and then we send it to the advisory committee, the superintendent's advisory committee, there's 2 board members on that committee, but we only get 1 vote. And so if we're feeling like we're in favor of switching to a 4-day week and it goes to that advisory committee and they advise us not to, then what's the perception if we go against that?
What's interesting is that you and Susan are our 2 representatives. I
Right.
love this.
Right, other comments from the board?
Take it away, Dr. Byers.
Oh, hold on. He's not ready, but Catherine is. Go ahead, Catherine.
Great.
So I was like emergency appointed to this position because my friend Esteban is on the dance. No, he's on the cheer team, and there's a basketball game tonight, so he couldn't come because like these things run late. But in my 4 or 5 days of knowing that I will make an appearance at this meeting, I've asked everyone that I've known, everyone that I know, and all of their friends that they know on how they feel about the school's, Elko High School's current climate running on a 5-day week. And the general consensus that I got was that many students at Elko High School feel very, very tired. Going to school 5 days a week, especially with being a student athlete or just being involved in student activities and clubs such as speech and debate. I feel personally that switching to a 4-day school week would allow the students of Elko and Spring Creek to get the rest that they need to focus on their education instead of trying to juggle clubs and sports and school all at one time. Okay, yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks for doing the research. That's what we want to know. What, helps to know, what do the students feel about this? How are they approaching this, and what do they think would benefit them academically? Thank you.
This is a tough one, right? Talking about it for a while. Yeah, and I reviewed a lot of the information that was in the file that Mr. Anderson had talked about from the survey, looking at raw numbers back and forth. I mean, everyone's got a good argument for and against. So when we have the students coming out, thank you so much, more insight. It's kind of a tough call. So I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm gonna go one way or the other. Is that what you're waiting for? Is that what you're waiting for?
No, I promise I'm not polling right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm tallying votes, but I'm not polling.
You're not okay. So it is, there's a lot of emotions behind it too as well, both for and against. So I have had many conversations with many people throughout the community. I'm fortunate enough to interact with many people with many different walks of life, and emotions have been high on all sides. So that's all I'm gonna say right now, and for fear of sticking my foot in my mouth. So.
All right, Matt, you're up.
All righty. Thank you. Susan, I have over the past year learned how well researched you are, and I have extolled that virtue to many people, particularly over the past 6 months or so, that I think you are probably the most well-read person that we have on our board from what you've expressed. Not to say that the rest of us don't research. I think we all come in prepared, but I respect what you have done in the past year, but also what I'm sure you have done here as well. I would love to have a war room in my office or my house and my office to be able to do exactly what you're talking. And there's too much data. When I have tried to research this, you get lost in the data. I love the technology that is the World Wide Web, but there's a lot of stuff out there. And I maybe prefer when I just had my little encyclopedia set, because that was the world to me. So now the world's much bigger. And when I go out and see what are the positives, what are the negatives, I can find arguments to back either position that I take. And even the documentation, and perhaps I misread it and I'm misinterpreting it, but even the documentation that Mr. Anderson provided, seems to have some conflict there. The Colorado study seemed to suggest that 3 years after implementation shows an improvement in scores, whereas the RAND study seems to suggest that scores decreased. I do agree 100% with what Mr. Anderson said, in that this needs to be done for the right reason. And if it's something other than academic, then we need to evaluate whether or not we're making it for the right reason. And so I kind of just was writing some notes, and I said, why should we consider this? And the first thing I wrote is to improve student learning and outcome. If we don't, and here's where I agree with Brooke, if we don't have qualified quality teachers, then we don't have quality outputs. I shouldn't say that. It's much harder to get those quality outputs. And the teacher retention stability apparently is backed up by the Missouri State University study that Mr. Anderson provided. Having stability in our schools should improve learning outcomes. And then today it was brought up that in the back of my head, I think I'd heard it. It just hadn't been, and I was digesting it and incubating back there. It was incubating. And then it was said just very concisely that as a recruitment tool, if this can be used as a positive recruitment tool, then that goes to what Brooke was saying of having quality, qualified teachers in our classrooms. I appreciate the people that are in our classrooms now. This is not to say that I don't feel that they're good enough, but I think that even they recognize that our students are not in the best situation because of the situation we find in our classrooms with our teachers. And so I see that as a very big portion of what we're looking at. Absenteeism in school obviously impacts outcomes. If kids aren't present to learn, they're probably not learning. And in looking at the attendance report from Wells, my interpretation of it, it seems to indicate that absenteeism went down in Wells. The problem is we have a massive pandemic in the middle of that. How much of that is trend versus how much of that is response back from the pandemic? Here, Susan, I agree with you. I'd love more data. We don't have the time to wait another 2 or 3 years to see what happens in Wells. One of the other things that I was trying to wrap my head around is because I've heard many people say, my kindergartner is not ready for another hour and a half in school. And I agree with that. In fact, my wife has said, this would not have worked for us if Carson were younger. She is not in favor of the 4-day because she understands what working families go through and what those with young children go through. And then I realized that while Elko and Spring Creek are different communities than our other areas that have already done 4-day school week, kids are kids. And why is it working for kindergartners in Wells and Carlin and West Wendover, but why wouldn't it work here in Elko and Spring Creek? And so that's kind of what I'm looking at as well. So what I'd heard is our kids can't handle more time in school. So if we reduce the number of days in school, we are increasing the number of hours per day. And that the parents, many of the parents that I've heard from directly or that were in the responses had said, our kids are in school long enough. Extending that is not going to work for them. But yet somehow those other communities within our county have seen that it does work. I don't think we had a mass exodus. So all of a sudden of K through 2nd grade, they still were there. They found a way to make it work. And if it can, and work, meaning that they're still attending school.
Right, but
Are
is it
they
working for student achievement?
I don't know. And I haven't
If
seen
you
that.
look at data, it's not
From Wells High School? From Wells.
from any of our schools. And then if you look further in the counties in Nevada, none of, and I know you can't do everything based off a test score.
Sure.
So that was just part of what I looked at, but none of the test scores at the counties that have 4-day weeks are really that great. So
How many are
then
great on
my,
a 5-day?
my thought was, okay, so what's the point in making this kind of change if you're not really seeing a difference in student achievement? Because the goal should be student achievement.
Sure.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. In your research, have you, looking just at Elko County School District, has there been a significant drop in the 4-day communities versus the 5-day communities same year?
Well, we've seen a drop in everyone's, but if I looked at, I went back and looked at, I gotta get the right agenda. April 9th, 2019, there was Wells 4-day attendance and academic comparison, because they were supposed to, I think somewhere along the line, the ball was dropped with Wells. That was supposed to be a pilot program that was supposed to be go back in 2 years and look at it to see if it was worth keeping or not. And I'm not sure there was any action taken on that. Same with the other areas. It was kind of like a 2-year thing and nothing was done at the end of the 2 years. So how do we know whether it really worked academically is what I'm saying. And I understand we have parents and kids, like I get that part. Some of Wells comparison data, this was from 2018. They did do, I think we had talked about some other time of, was there anything, like, did they do their comparison that they were supposed to? And I did find it. So, and some of it went up, some of it went down. It wasn't just like, wow, this really made a difference. And like I said, I'm not totally opposed to this. I just think it needs to be further looked at so we know we're making the best choice academically for our kids.
Sure. So other thoughts that I had on that, and this kind of goes to your point and sums with what Brooke was saying as well, in that in looking at the things that I've looked at, as I mentioned, I can find studies that have said 4-day doesn't work. I can find studies that say 4-day does work. None of it that I've seen says 4 days amazing. None of it has said 4 days completely terrible. The ones that show that it doesn't work are a significant but not extreme drop in grades. The ones that say that it does work is a significant but not extreme increase, and it does take multiple years. And so to Brooke's point of our community has spoken, one of the things that I have said in the past is I would prefer home rule over Washington, D.C. saying this is what you will do for your community. And part of the arguments that I've made is if our community chooses to do something that Washington, D.C. or Carson City, for that matter, says is going to be worse academically, our community makes that decision. If they choose to have less than performing students, that's our community's right. And I don't want somebody telling us, no, you can't do that. So to Brooke's point of our community has spoken, I don't think we said, would you like your students to perform less than or greater than? Check yes or no. And that's not how it was presented. So, like you said with the pay as you go, I don't know that we saw what the result was as a community. We didn't look at that further down the line. But I trust that collectively our community knows a 4-day, taking kids out of school 1 day is probably going to impact academic achievement. They still said, let's go with it. I have some serious concerns, though, about what we do with that. Sped ed. There are kids that need 5 days of instruction. Taking 1 day away from them is not going to help them. And those are kids that are, And perhaps this also goes, Elsie, to your program as well with English learners. Taking another opportunity for them to learn is not taking that away is not good for us. It's not conducive. What do we do for food service? There are kids that are insecure. How do we food insecure? How do we supply that with getting them in there?
These studies did show that there was not an impact on those. Almost, I think every study showed that. Well, that's been brought up. I'm just saying the studies that we have, whether they said it was academically positive or not, it was a neutral point for
SPED?
food insecurity. That's just
food
what it
insecurity.
said. Yeah.
Right.
I don't remember seeing SPED on there on any of the studies.
I don't know that anything in the
Reading that.
folder came in with that particularly, but
anyways, just to the point of
sure.
food
No, I
insecurity, it showed
appreciate
that
that.
that wasn't. But
I did visit with communities and schools and asked them about their program. What would happen if we went to a 4-day model? That would impact their ability and their I'm sorry, community and school partners, but their backpack program. That would mean one more day of food that they're providing to the number of children that they're already doing that for. Additional cons, childcare. That was another thing that my wife had said that, is probably my most trusted advisor that speaks loudly. We would not have been able to have had the jobs that we did with an extra day of childcare that we needed to pay for. There are options, there are ways to work through that. And that's why I was excited, because I want to see the solution, regardless of which way we go. We need to solve the problem that has created this issue. I shouldn't say created, but has brought this issue to our attention. Or we need to find ways to solve the problems that a 4-day work week or school week would create. Longer days for schools. And I've said multiple times, I'm not sure on that. I'd love to see, if we do pass this, I'd like to see the Superintendent's Advisory Council look at year-round school. Instead of extending the school day, extend the school year. That also addresses the summer loss. There's a term for it, and I'm not summer slide. That would address that as well. In fact, hypothetically, I guess I didn't write it down where I thought I did. Anyways, I had a calendar that could technically work. Longer days for staff, longer days for coaches, longer days for students, not being able to work as much. Students that have afternoon jobs on the high school side would have less time for those jobs. On the flip side, if we went, they'd have full days on Fridays. Pros would be less absenteeism, as we already mentioned, better stability with the staff, less coverage, more prep time, potentially feeling valued, more concentrated time, less distractions, better mental health for students, staff, as was mentioned by our student representative, Catherine, having an extra day to decompress, an extra day to be able to work on homework if need be, an extra day off of, not having to do other things. Better recruitment opportunities. None of these are that golden bullet or that silver bullet and that says here, this is exactly how this is going to improve student outcome. And I recognize that student outcome needs to be where we are. But if our community is saying this will be better for our kids, and our teachers are saying this will be better for us, anecdotally, that should lead to student outcomes that are better. So I feel like I'm kind of walking around in circles at this point, but other things I'd like to see considered is from our collective bargaining groups. If we're going to a 4-day, I think it needs to be understood that there should be an opportunity for them to be able to give back 20% of their sick leave. That was one of the arguments that was made, is that they would take less leave. So I think it's fair that they say, yes, we can give up 20% of the sick leave because we're giving up 20% of the days worked. A time off is now worth more, so they're not losing those hours. When I worked in private industry, when we went from a 5-day week to a 4 to 10 week, we simply adjusted. Instead of saying you now get 10 days off, you now get, instead of now getting 2 weeks off, you now get 8 days, or however we phrase that. So it's still equitable. It's still a way to do that. And I'd like to see our collective bargaining units meet us at the table, because it seems that overwhelmingly most of them are in favor of this plan. I think that's it for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, there's a lot to think about, a lot to discuss. I'm just going to go ahead and be fairly blunt. I'm in favor of the 4-day week. I have been. The only thing I'm not in favor of is the longer days. I will tell you, 2 of my littles come home every day and say, Mom, why is school so long? And they love school, but they say it is too long. And I do have a concern about that. However, I have talked to a lot of people who are on a 4-day week, and kids are amazing. They adjust and they are resilient. I do agree we need to make a decision one way or another this evening, whether it is referring it to the Superintendent's Advisory Committee to bring it back as, here's the possibility of what this looks like, because a lot of people I have talked to are concerned about exactly what does this look like. I can't say whether I'm in favor or opposed because I don't know what this looks like. Yes, I can look at some schedules in other places, but is that going to be different for Spring Creek and Elko? And as Mr. Anderson has talked about, yes, that will be different for Spring Creek and Elko. So I would urge the board to make a decision of some nature this evening. We've been talking about this for a long time. We can drag it out forever and never get anything done and waste a lot of everyone's time. Or we can just move forward one way or another.
I would just like to clarify, though, that if this goes to the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, it is not for them to come back with, this is what it would look like. It is for them to come back with either a yes, go to 4-day, or a no, stay at 5, right?
I think, I mean, at the most
Recommendation one way or the
fundamental, it would be a recommendation. But I think it would be within your bounds to say, you know, if you do want to go, which, you know, give us some ideas of what that might look like, because in the end, you as the board will not get to have a say in how long the days are, what the schedule looks like. That is our decision to make of the time that kids go to school and what time they start school and when they end school and how long the class periods are and all of that. So your decision would be, are we doing 4 or 5-day? We will make sure the instructional minutes match what they have to match according to the state. At this point, we're over. But I'll tell you right now, your comment about you don't want the day to be longer. There's no way to remove that many days and still be okay on minutes. So we would either need to lengthen the day or add more days. Something along what
And I
Matt was
totally
saying.
understand that. That's
And
what
I-
I'm saying.
and-
That's
and
the
I bet
conflict.
I would be willing to wager dollar bills that a lot of the people that said they are in favor, if we said, perfect, this is what we're doing. You're now doing 2 weeks earlier in the summer and 2 weeks later in the summer, they'd be like, whoa, that is not what I meant when I said I want to do it. So whatever you guys come up with as far as a vote, yay or nay, in the end, the implementation of that would be at the school districts.
I think what people are basing their
decision.
opinion on, though, is that
What's going on in Wells and
what's going on
Wendover.
in
Yeah.
Wells, yes.
Yeah,
And
I think that's
so,
accurate.
same length of year, longer days. And so I think we're, as a board, probably basing our decision off of that also.
Yeah, so I think it would be okay to say, hey, we'd like your recommendation to whether or not go 4-day following the same model as Wendover, Jackpot, Carlin, Wells. That's everybody, right? Yeah, those are the 4 that are doing it. So you could say we want a recommendation on that. And we can give that recommendation. And in the end, as you astutely noted and making sure everyone's clear on this, the final decision, and I know it's weighing heavily on you, and it's why I'm sitting over here kind of just relaxed, leg up, is you have to make that decision. And being fully aware that it is going to be unpopular with many people, even people who said they wanted the 4-day. Some are going to be like, ugh, but not like that, right? Like that's just going to be the reality. We're not here to make popular decisions. And I want to make it clear too, that I know there's this dichotomy of, well, we were elected by the people, we represent the people, but you're also here to make what in your estimation is the best decision for our schools and for the kids. I could give parallel examples of why we don't just do what everyone tells us, because it's not the best decision. But I'm not going to do that. I don't want to offend anyone. So you're going to have to make this decision. Even if the superintendent, I know you were like, how does that look if the advisory committee says, we don't think it's a good idea and you do it anyway? I'm going to tell you, Brooke, I'm going to tell all of you, you have to that should not be at the forefront of your mind. The forefront of your mind should be, is this the right decision? And if you feel good about it, if you can vote with the clear conscience and that's what you think is the best decision, then that's the best decision, and feel good about your decision. So I intentionally, and I didn't mean to torture you, but I intentionally gave you, I know people are going to have their opinion on what I think about this, and I've shared it freely with people, but I intentionally gave you information that all it did was exacerbate your worry about what's the right decision. I gave you surveys and studies and everything that go in either direction. And that's because that's what type of decision this is. You make the decision that you think is the best one and you move forward with it. I'm not trying to lecture you on how to make decisions, but don't chase your tail with what's this going to feel like and who's going to say what and how's this going to be after. You just got to make that decision and move forward.
I'm going to say just one last thing. After looking through all of the information that you shared with us, I feel like it's a wash when it comes to attendance, when it comes to academic achievement. All the things that I looked at, like Matt said, looked good in some cases and looked worse in some cases. So right now I'm basing it off of the fact that the majority of parents, and I looked at the little pie charts, the majority of parents were in favor, the majority of students were in favor of it, the majority of teachers were in favor of it. And I feel like I'm throwing, and this might not be the way to think about it, but I'm throwing the undecided kind of in a group where, well, they were undecided. So, you may have half of them mad at you and you may have half okay with it. But also, so that's kind of where I'm basing my decision off of. Plus, I've talked to so many people doing the 4-day week. A lot of the things that I heard also were that the people that were opposed to it after doing it are no longer opposed to it and would never want to go back. So I'm in favor of a 4-day week.
I think you bring up a good point in that not going back either by choice or by design is going to be, we're committing, like I said, at the beginning, this could change the trajectory of this district for decades. And I think that's
seems to be our history though, Matt.
Why
we're talking about, what did we walk into? A majority of this board right now. Yeah. What did we walk into? So
good point. So I know that you said that you would, Mr. Anderson, that your staff would look at timing and everything else for the benefit of the board. I did analyze all of the times that the 4-day communities are in school, averaged that out, looked at the times that the Elko Spring Creek schools are in school. It appears that there's about a 60-minute difference. I think it was 57 minutes or something. So a 60-minute difference if we were to keep the same schedule that the other communities are, for lack of a collective term, not to say they're other, but those the 4-day communities, it would be about a 7-hour, 45-minute day. So right now versus a 6-hour, 45-minute day. I don't want to beat a dead horse. You mentioned the people that said, well, wait a minute. No, that's not what we thought this was going to look like. I asked my son, are you in favor of 4-day? He said, absolutely. And he gave me all these reasons. And I said, great, I'm going to propose that we do 4-day and go year-round school. So you'll now have 7 weeks off. And we're going to split that up. I found my calendar. Hypothetically, you're going September 5th to December 16th. You'll get 2 weeks for Christmas. January 3rd to April 14th, you'll get 2 weeks for Easter or spring break. and then May 1 to August 11, and then you'll get 3 weeks off for summer. And he said, no, absolutely not, Dad. You cannot make that motion. And I said, well, what about all these great things that you wanted off for 4 days? He said, it doesn't matter. And I said, then you're not doing it for the right reason. Because that's, if that simple change is enough to be able to, and I say simple, I get the impact, that would be huge, but that's kind of what we're looking at. So would it be fair, Mr. Anderson, to say that approximately 60 minutes would be added to the day if we kept the same rough schedule as the others? Has there been any analysis on what that might look like? Not to try to pigeonhole you or say, ha, gotcha, this is what you said.
It's consistent across the district as far as because in order for our unions to be okay with equity among their members, contract days for staff are extended from a 7-hour day to I think it's an 8/22. Is that correct? And so, and then the school days, they're not exactly the same because the math doesn't work out perfectly. So the 4 days actually do end up going slightly longer, more minutes per year than the 5 days right now. Is that, again, can I get confirmation? Yes. I still haven't answered your question. Wells, for example, when I was there, they went from 8 to 3:40. So it's not a significant difference. It's about an hour-ish.
Thank you.
More. And what that looks like, I will say, from an elementary to a middle to a high school, very different, and how those minutes are utilized.
But only 3 minutes difference between the averages, just to let you know, in a week. Cool. I'm sorry, in a day.
Nice. Thanks. That's great. Thanks for that useless information.
Hey, I'm just gonna say, what's the will of the board?
I really thought we were going to be here till 10 o'clock continuing to debate this.
Let's not.
So
I'm asking.
So because of that, I'm going to just throw it out there. Madam Chair, I move that we request the Superintendent Advisory Committee to consider a 4-day school week as soon as possible and to return to the board as quickly as possible with their recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I do. So since I've been put on this board and people have talked to me, I've been told.
They did it before though.
No, they didn't tell me anything before.
Talking to you now.
Yes, they like to talk one-on-one, but it was always about how, where the direction of the district was going, and how awful things were, and how bad Nevada is. So, there's that great quote, and you can argue who it came from, but it's always, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity. So I think we have to do something. I've also stated to numerous people that the district is at a crossroads and how it was run to where it is running. And I think there's a lot of good, smart people that are thinking things through. And so I think that we can probably think this through and hopefully help to figure out the direction that we want to go. The last thing I'll talk about is every person on the planet will use as much time as they possibly can to do any test that they want to. So the argument that we may not be shorting our students, I think that it's a moot point, because if you've got 30 minutes to do something you have to do, you're going to take 30 minutes. If you have 6 months to do that same task, you're going to wait 6 months to do that task. So just like to throw that out.
I'd just like to say again, restate that I think we need to vote on it tonight, either yay or nay, for going for a 4-day week or not. And I hate for this to sound like disrespectful, but I just feel like they'll have the same information that we've been given. The data is good and bad in both ways, and
I disagree
I
that
just
they'll
think we
have the
should
same
move
data,
on it.
because that committee could come up with, what is this going to look like? How many bus drivers and other classified employees are we going to be letting go because of a 4-day week? What does that possibility look like? How how does that affect PERS for people? There's other things to consider besides student achievement in there. So I think that advisory panel could help us with those kind of things too. And just even a possible, here's what your schedule would look like, because we have a lot of busing. So, you know, like Flagview right now gets out, I think a little later.
3:30.
So they'll get out even later, and those kids that have to walk across the bridge over to Southside. I mean, there's all those things to consider. I'm not sure some people have thought about that issue. They just thought 4-day week, yay. And I think that advisory committee could help with those.
I agree on the advisory committee as well, just because there are the logistics of, I've also been told that if this goes forward, this might be one of the biggest districts that's actually pushed this forward to as well. So we definitely need to be cautious in how we're pushing forward. I'm all for, if this was as easy, you know, we all would have been sitting here, we would have done probably an hour ago if it was something that didn't need to go through. Also, there's the respect of the district employees too as well. These guys are professionals that do what they do. They'll have good things in front. And we still have the option. I mean, I don't care what it looks like if the superintendent advisory board comes back and says, hey, we don't think you should do this, but all the data points to it otherwise, and they still think it's best for the community. Like that's what we're here for. So as Mr. Anderson has said numerous times, I'll do what you guys tell me to do. Not for the sake of obedience, but for the sake of the job. And that's what needs to be done. So I think I say we send it, I'm all for it going to the committee so they can get more data specific. So.
And Brooke, that was the reason for my motion was twofold. One, the due process point of this. I want to do everything we can to make sure that if this is the final decision, that we have been transparent on it, that we are without reproach as far as the way that we've done this. And the second part of that is, I don't know how much time and energy the district has put into the hypothetical, because I don't know that I think they recognize that may not be the best use of their time. But I think putting it before the advisory committee gives them that authority, and the request would be hopefully that they would come back with, this is why we can't do it, because we've done the models, we've done the studies. We can't run 47 buses. I don't even know in what you're looking to do with the time that we have to stretch things out. So that's why I made it that way, was to do that. Because I would love to be able to say, okay, September 1, this is what we're doing, one way or the other. But I want to make sure that due process is there so that we're doing it right. And when we have the naysayers, they at least can say, you did it properly. That was why I made that motion that way, just to let you know.
Makes sense.
And a calendar doesn't have to be turned into the state until May 1st. I mean, I know we would want it done sooner than that, but so to me, there still is time, if this were to go forward, to do it for next year. If the committee gets it together.
Yeah, if I can give a word about calendars, otherwise I'll have Josh Farmer mad at me tomorrow. When it comes to calendars, to be honest, about a month and a half ago, schools would be working on their master schedules. They'd be working on their calendars for next year. We bring those to you guys early April so that we can get them approved to be submitted before May 1. And like right now, Josh would be receiving calendars from schools, and we're at a point where we have to tell them to go ahead and get 2 ready, just in case, or if we can come to a decision soon, then they can hustle up and get the 1 done. So we're already behind on that. I know April is, it's 3 months away. We're already delayed at this moment.
Okay.
How long do you anticipate it would take for the advisory committee to meet, and how quickly can the advisory committee be formed?
I can probably do that pretty quickly. I mean, most of the committees sitting in this room right now, actually. I've got the admin association president over there. I've got the ECTA president over there. Y'all are here. I'm here. My directors are here. pretty much everybody's here. So if we just went with those 5 entities, what I would want to do is like probably first thing in the morning tomorrow, I would say, can we meet between now and next Monday, basically, or next Tuesday, something so that we could feasibly come up with a recommendation prior to the following board meeting. I would not want to carry this out till February 28th. And if we weren't able to get it before February 14th, we might want to consider a special meeting just for that purpose, so we can move forward.
You'd also mentioned, so go ahead.
No.
You'd also mentioned potentially expanding that committee. Do you want that as part of this official motion? Does it need to come from this board?
I was looking through policy. I mean, it's my committee. I guess I was looking through policy to see if there's any specific language about who is on who that committee must be comprised of, and I could not find it. I don't know, Cody, if you've been looking this whole time or not. Have you? There is. Okay, good. Cody's my policy guy during meetings. He'll be like, it's this policy. He'll help me out there. So I couldn't find it either. So it looks like it's up to me. But as the excellent employee that I am, if you want to suggest or even so bold as to direct me to include other entities, I'd be happy to consider that.
Are we allowed to give you permission to adjust to policy if we don't have a specific policy? So can we just make a blanket statement to say we are purposefully giving you permission to make this regardless of counter policy?
Well, there is a policy, so that's
okay. As long as I didn't want there to tomorrow morning to say, oh, we found a policy. Oops, we couldn't type fast enough.
We've stopped looking, so we won't find that.
Okay, cool.
We're done looking.
Thank you.
I would just recommend, and I'm not going to ask for this to be in the motion, but as EXO is one of our bargaining units, I would say that would probably be a good idea to have them sitting in on that one. And perhaps maybe our SROs, because they've got different insight. So again.
So those are suggestions of which other entities that. Okay.
Yeah. All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion before we vote? All right. All in favor? Matt, would you like to restate your motion? Or would you, does everyone understand the motion? Does anyone need it restated? Okay, no restating. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the motion carries. All right, we'll move on to item 3.1, which is our consent agenda.
Madam Chair, move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda being approved, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and that motion carries. Item 4.1 is a report from our NASB director. And as Jeff is gone, I'll just say there is a NASB training coming up for board presidents, which is February 4th, and I am planning to attend that. Beyond that, as more information comes out from this legislative session, I know Jeff will be keeping us abreast of all of that going on. Just as an item of note, every legislator has to provide 5 BDRs, bill draft recommendations. So when we look at all of the different things that show up dealing with education, just recognize that everyone who we elect has to submit 5 of those. That makes for a big pile of work to go through as far as the legislature goes. And like I say, if I was ever there, I would say I recommend we just retract a whole bunch of stuff and get rid of things instead of adding. But I am not there. I'm here and I'm glad to be here. So that's the report from me as the backup NASB director. Item 4.2 is items from board members.
Madam Chair, I'll make this quick. I was appointed to the Debt Management Commission by this board last meeting, and they will meet as their organizational meeting in February.
Excellent.
I rest.
Thank you. All right, anything else? All right, we will move on to item 5.1, which is our superintendent's report.
Thank you. So a few things to mention. Number one, the Poetry Out Loud district-wide competition was held last Tuesday at Elko High. Junior Ashley Sandoval will be representing Elko County at the State Poetry Out Loud competition in Reno on March 11th. Another Elko High junior that you may have heard of named Catherine Weiner placed second. Congratulations, Catherine. That was not on the list of accolades, but there it is. And freshman Natasha Tervort placed third. So congratulations to those three. Very exciting. It's actually, I think, already launched and started happening today, but the spread, there's something called Spread the Word Nevada. It's happening this week at Spring Creek Elementary, Grammar, Northside, and Liberty Peak. Spread the Word Nevada will kick off the start of their literacy services in those four Elko County elementary schools with celebratory book distribution. So every child in attendance is going to receive 3 gently used books and 2 brand new books, and they will continue to receive books each month of the school year, along with family reading events every other month of the school year. This sponsorship is made possible thanks to funding from the additional community recovery grants approved by Nevada lawmakers to direct relief dollars to those organizations who can make immediate impacts for constituents to alleviate challenges the pandemic introduced to the state. And to read that was that was a mouthful. It's very exciting. To summarize what that's going to look like this week is pretty much every morning, one of those schools is for like a 2 to 3 hour time frame. Kids in their classes are cycling through and getting their books. And then every evening, one of those schools is doing a family literacy event to kick those off. We are going to have the CEO of Spread the Word Nevada coming tomorrow evening. She and I and Kayla and some other Candace, I think, some other people will go to one of those family literacy events tomorrow night, and then we'll attend the book distribution for at least a little while on Thursday morning. And if you want to jump in on one of those, if you haven't seen I think we sent the flyer to the district, but if you need those dates again, Candace can get those for you, or I can, or Cassie can, but I'm sure the schools would love to have you there. And you don't need to email me ahead of time telling me you're going. You're good to go. Do it. Really happy to see you. All right. Next up, Elko High School is going to celebrate their Mental Health Awareness Week, February 6th through the 11th, culminating with an expo on that Friday. That same week also marks National School Counseling Week. So a lot of attention being given to mental health awareness and what we can do for our students in that regard. And excited to see what else we do there. Cowboy Poetry school presentations began today and will go into next week. Thank you to the Western Folk Life Center for offering those opportunities to our students. It's always a fun time of year when we get to partner with them and have our students participate. Very briefly, I won't say a whole lot because it is all speech at this point, but last evening we heard from Governor Lombardo. And he said a lot of things during his State of the State address about many aspects of Nevada and what his plans and proposals are for how to make things better. But without going into too much detail, the comments he made, I don't know if you've heard it or not, but if you didn't listen live or haven't listened to recording it, you probably should. He spent, I think, the majority of his speech talking about K-12 education. If not the majority, like pretty darn close to it. He talked for a long time about our K-12 schools. A very large number of for money was thrown out as to what he plans on infusing into our school system, which into K-12 in Nevada, which is pretty great. He said a lot of things that I think are positive, hopeful, and in the right direction of a lot of things we've talked about in here as well. So seems like they took our invest document seriously. So thank you for your backing there with that superintendent's invest document. And hopefully we can continue to have things move forward. Obviously, those are all the governor's proposals and his thoughts and what he wants to accomplish, and that will have to be backed and supported by legislators from all around the state. But it was good to hear at least some dedication and some importance put into our K-12 schools. Not sure what could be more important for our state than making sure our schools and our students are taken care of, as they are the future of our state. And lastly, I appreciate all of you in attendance, as well as Jeff and Adriana, who are not here. For those who haven't noticed the social media posts, it is School Board Trustee Appreciation Month, and I appreciated you before January, and I will appreciate you after January, but I'm publicly appreciating you because that is the month to do so. Josh, I will further give you appreciation. Okay, don't worry, man. It's gonna be all right. I will continue to appreciate you. But seriously, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything you do. We just spent a long time talking about a very difficult topic when we talk about change, and the decisions up here are sometimes pretty easy to make, and sometimes they are super impossible to make. But you still have to make them. We can't just be scared to make a decision. So thank you so much for your dedication, your time. The pay is laughable, and I just appreciate that you care enough to be here. So, and Catherine, you're only here once or twice maybe, but we appreciate you being here too. You also get School Board Appreciation Month recognition today. So thank you. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 6.1, which is approval of the accounts payable.
Madam Chair, move to approve the accounts payable as presented.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Abstentions, disclosures? I will disclose that. Do you want to just do accounts payable January 24th?
I apologize. I should have done that a little bit better. And if we can do accounts payable January 24th, 2023 and accounts payable board member reimbursement January 24 as one motion, I'd like to approve both of those.
Okay, is the maker of the second acceptable? Is that acceptable?
Yes,
Okay,
second.
thank you. All right, I will still ask for any abstentions or disclosures on those accounts. All right, any discussion or questions? All right, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and those are approved.
Madam Chair, move to approve the Wells Rural accounts payable for January 24, 2023.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I will disclose that I have a family member who is employed by Wells Rural Electric, so I will abstain from voting.
I will also abstain from voting since I have a family member employed by them.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All right, we will proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? We have 2 abstentions, and the majority of the board seated here today approves those, so they are approved. That gets us to our final opportunity for input from the public. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment? All right, Mr. Hoffman.
For the record, Lee Hoffman, thank you, Madam President and members of the board. And I didn't know it was Trustee Appreciation Month, and I was already set to get up here and say how much I appreciated your discussions tonight. You're dealing with some, not just the 4-day school week, but also those policies, and you had open and frank discussion in a very public way, and I really appreciate that. So aside from it being Trustee Appreciation Month, I do have a question or a concern, I guess. I'm neither for nor against 4-day school week. That's and not within my wheelhouse. But in the interest of open and transparent government, I hypothesize that the superintendent's committee is going to be making recommendations that greatly affect the distribution, the use of public resources and funds. And so I hypothesize that those meetings are subject to the open meeting law. And I would request that the district either confirm that, or if not, clarify why that is not so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment? All right, we'll move on to item 8.1, which is adjournment of the meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a safe trip home.